Bitter criticism. This I'm going to read Russia Today. What's going on with Russia? They're talking about the 8 Gaza hostages released by Hamas. 3 Israelis and 5 Thai nationals were handed over to the Red Cross on Thursday as part of the ceasefire deal. What? 3 Israelis and 5 Thai nationals were handed over to the Red Cross. So those are the Hamas hostages, I guess. So Russia Today is talking about. They're talking about the Palestinian hostages. I mean, the Hamas hostages. But I'm going to read something from Russia itself. Russian media reached source as NATO ICE countermeasures report. January 30, 2025. Home World News. Russian media reached source as NATO ICE countermeasures reports. NATO report studies rapid growth of Russia Today and Sputnik in Africa and Middle East and suggests new strategies to limit their impact. So NATO is, I will read it again for myself. I didn't pay attention. Russian media reached source as NATO ICE countermeasures report. NATO report studies rapid growth of Russia Today and Sputnik in Africa and Middle East and suggests new strategies to limit their impact. Yeah, it's not working with me. I was never outside South America, and I always read Russia Today. A fresh NATO report highlights a sharp increase in the reach of Russian state media outlets, Russia Today and Sputnik, particularly in Africa and the Middle East. That's nice. Where the news outlets have gained millions of new followers. The report, published on Thursday by the NATO Strategic Communications Center of Excellence, Stratcom COE, examines how Russian media operations have expanded their influence after the escalation of the Ukrainian conflict in early 2022. With Russian state-backed media subject to blanket bans in the West, the outlets diverted their resources elsewhere. According to the report, Russia Today Arabic saw its audience grow by 10 million users since the breakout of fighting between Ukraine and Russia. Sputnik Arabic also significantly increased its content output, posting 30 to 35% more frequently, while the news agency's engagement on social media surged by 80%. Russian embassies in Africa also saw a 41% rise in social media followers, reflecting a broader trend of growing Russian media influence in non-Western regions. The report notes. It also claims the outlets have been capitalizing on anti-colonial narratives. Anti-colonial reality, it's not narratives, yeah. But I like this. Narratives. I guess it's more interesting about the format and literature, not journalism. Well, journalism should be about facts, not about literature of fictions. It also claims the outlets have been capitalizing on anti-colonial narratives and overall frustration with Western policies, particularly in Africa, and blames this on historical ties to the Soviet Union that still shape public perceptions there. In some cases, the narratives have resonated strongly with audiences already skeptical of Western institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the International Criminal Court, the report notes. There's another news interesting. Russia today winning cognitive war. I'm going to read that too. While Stratcom COE project its findings to the entirety of the global south, the report actually examined the work of Russian media as well as social media activities. It had linked to Russia without any solid evidence in Egypt, Mali, Kenya, South Africa, and the UAE. The authors of the report appeared to struggle with terminology, rejecting the global south over an increasing pushback against the name, and shut down the term majority countries, claiming it has been promoted by assorted quote-unquote malign actors to push their agenda. Instead, the report uses the term quote multi-aligned community, end quote, vaguely defining it as quote states existing outside of Western environment who have exhibit a preference for aligning or partnering with chosen states depending on specific spheres of issues, end quote. In response to expanding reach of Russian media, the Nature report proposed new countermeasures aimed at reducing Moscow's ever-growing influence. One recommendation is to establish a NATO-led initiative to engage with audiences in Africa and the Middle East, improving direct communication and addressing concerns about Western policies. The report also suggests that NATO should work with local media outlets to quote-unquote counter disinformation. Well, Chile is completely, this country right here, Chile, this red hole, this shithole is absolutely dominated by NATO, for sure. The report also suggests that NATO should work with local media outlets to quote-unquote counter disinformation and to bankroll local quote-unquote independent journalism. It also calls for stronger partnership with civil society organizations to promote diverse viewpoints and counter what it describes as one-sided narratives from Russian state media. And well, there's another news. Russia today winning cognitive war. Here we are in Quilpué city, a far right-wing governed city. This is all right-wing because they say the previous mayor, it was a left-winger, corrupted left-winger something. But I don't believe, well, maybe it's true, but that doesn't matter, corruption is not so important. No, it is just to Russia today winning cognitive war. I guess I read this back in December 18th. It's too far from now. I guess I read it. Well, today is January 30. going to read the news about Syria. Analysis by Murad Zadizadeh. Murad Sadigzadeh. January 30 today. Home World News. Syria can't rebuild without Russia. As the new Damascus authorities strive to restore their country and its diplomatic links, they understand that Moscow is essential to this effort. Just I said by Murad Sadizadeh. The interesting thing, president of the Middle East Studies Center visiting lecture HSE University, Moscow. The interesting thing is, looks like the new president of Syria is in Russia. He's already in Russia. Look, the photograph. There's a photograph. Can you see there's the Russian and Syrian authorities. The new authorities are in Russia. Syria's interim government faces numerous challenges as it sets about rebuilding the country following the downfall of Bashar al-Assad on December 8, led by Ahmad al-Sharaa. The new leadership is striving for national reconciliation while simultaneously confronting ongoing instability. The foreign minister of the interim government, Assad Hassan al-Shaibani, has said that, quote, "The joy of the people will remain incomplete until Syria's territorial integrity is fully restored and displaced persons and refugees return to their homeland." According to the United Nations, more than 115,000 people have returned to Syria since the fall of Assad. However, a significant number of Syrians remain outside the country. On the international stage, the interim government is taking steps to establish relations with various nations, including a recent ministerial meeting in Saudi Arabia with representatives of both Western and Middle Eastern nations, as well as al-Shaibani's tour of several neighboring countries. Meetings between Syrian and Russian representatives have also taken place in both Damascus and Moscow. So, what a strange situation, isn't it? It looks like Russia is doing the diplomatic job, diplomatic work, talking to everybody, to Bashar Assad and the new I forgot. Anyway, within Syria, discussions continue regarding the nation's future political structure. Hadi al-Bara, the leader of the Syrian opposition in exile, stated that the revolution is not yet complete despite Assad's fall and must continue until justice, freedom, and democracy are fully achieved. He underscored the need for an inclusive transition process involving all factions, along with the drafting of a new constitution to be followed by a referendum and elections. These developments highlight the complexity of the challenges facing Syria's interim government as it seeks to reconcile different factions and rebuild the country amidst ongoing instability. Subtitle: Domestic Policy for National Reconciliation. Despite their uncertainty regarding the future, Syria's current leaders appear committed to preserving state institutions and preventing the chaos that accompanied similar transitions in Iraq and Libya. Yeah. No, I guess this funny thing is that their leader, maybe Russia today is saying that this is kind of the same process like in Libya and Iraq, but it's not the same thing, I guess. Over the past month, the government has taken significant steps to normalize life in the country. Essential public services have been restored, security has been ensured in major cities, and certain restrictions imposed by the previous government have been lifted. The new administration has demonstrated a willingness to compromise and avoid radical changes to the state's political and social structure, including by maintaining the existing secular system of governance throughout the transitional period. However, society remains deeply divided and the government faces a range of pressing issues. One of the primary challenges of internal policy remains the preservation of law and order in the country. The government must operate in an environment of ongoing localized conflicts between various ethnic and religious groups, while simultaneously dealing with remnants of the former regime. Incidents of violence continue to be reported in Homs and other central regions, including attacks on Alawite communities, which had largely supported Assad's rule. The authorities are striving to prevent these incidents from escalating into full-scale conflicts, yet tensions remain high. Managing relations with religious and ethnic minorities is another key area requiring careful attention. Christians, Jews, and Kurds have expressed cautious optimism toward the new authorities, but have demanded clear safety guarantees. The appointment of Druze activist Mohsena al-Maitawi as governor of Suwaida province signaled an effort to integrate minorities into governance. However, concerns persist that the Druze and Kurds may not receive sufficient political representation in Syria's future political framework. Additionally, negotiations have begun between the transitional government and the Syrian Democratic Forces (SDF) regarding the peaceful integration of Kurdish military units under the Ministry of Defense. While such integration could enhance stability, it also risks provoking opposition from Turkey. Another major challenge in internal policy is the recovery of the economy and social sector. The government urgently needs to restructure the state administration, including by overhauling personnel at all levels. While the interim administration has announced plans to reform the bureaucratic system, it still grapples with the entrenched corruption and inefficiencies inherited from the previous one. Additionally, there is a significant shortage of skilled professionals, particularly in middle and senior management positions, as a large portion of the educated population has either left the country or remains reluctant to collaborate with the new authorities. Controlling armed factions is another crucial aspect of internal policy. The transitional government aims to establish a unified national army, yet in reality numerous armed groups continue to operate independently, often influenced by foreign sponsors, like the United States. That's what I think. Like everybody knows, Managing these factions remains a delicate task, as the government must navigate between competing forces to prevent a resurgence of violence. The success of these efforts will depend on the government's ability to engage in a constructive dialogue with various groups and maintain a delicate balance between competing political and societal interests. International engagement of Syria's new leadership. The interim government of Syria is striving to establish a dialogue with regional and global powers in order to secure their support in rebuilding the country. On January 12, an international meeting at the ministerial level was held in Riyadh, focusing on the reconstruction of Syria's infrastructure, economy and social sector. Participants discussed the creation of conditions for the safe return of Syrian refugees, countering extremist threats, and strengthening regional security. Special attention was given to the need to uphold Syria's sovereignty and territorial integrity, including discussions on Israeli incursions into the buffer zone on Mount Hermon and in Quneitra province. The meeting was attended by representatives from Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, the Gulf states, as well as the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, and hell itself, and Italy, and international organizations such as the EU, the Arab League, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and the United Nations. A major topic on the agenda was international sanctions against Syria. Saudi Arabia called for their removal to accelerate the country's recovery. Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan bin Abdullah emphasized that continued sanctions hinder Syria's development and reconstruction. And at the same time, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock stressed the need to maintain sanctions against individuals linked to the previous regime while advocating for a reasonable reassessment of restrictions to facilitate humanitarian aid. Germany has also allocated an additional 50 million euros for food supplies, emergency shelters, and medical assistance. Interim Foreign Minister Al-Shaibani visited Doha, where he met with his Qatari counterpart and the Prime Minister of Qatar to discuss strengthening bilateral ties and securing economic support for Syria's reconstruction. Prior to that, Al-Shaibani also visited Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and the United Arab Emirates in an effort to gain the backing of regional partners. I guess because Syria has a lot of oil, I guess. Not too much oil, but why everybody? A lot of people want to reconstruct Syria and everybody forget about Palestine because it's all about capitalism and oil. So goodbye from Kilpue. This article is just way too big